Hi everyone, a warm welcome. Thanks for joining us today for our live analysis session, right? Regardless of whether you are watching it live or watching it this recording, right? My name is Ryan, and today, let me just give a short introduction of myself before we begin. I've recently joined the team recognized as finalist for the Best FX Research for the past 4 years. And at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A, or if you're watching this recording, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Okay, so before we proceed with this presentation, I just need to give a disclaimer. Anything that is presented today is to be treated as educational purposes only, is not to be treated as investment advice. Right? So there are a few things we want to cover for today. The first thing is key economic events. So what has happened in the past week and what are some things to look forward to next week. Then after we're done with that, I'll also, of course, show where you can get the data or information. Let's say you look at a calendar of things to look forward to. And after we're done with that, then I'll go through 3 setups for the week ahead. And afterwards, at the end, if you have time, we can do a Q&A, or if you have any chart requests during the session itself, feel free to let me know in the Q&A. Right? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing first so that I can give you, I can show you where to get your calendar for events that have already occurred or are going to occur next week, right? So I'm sharing my screen now, hope you can see it. So where you can get your information regarding the key economic events that are going to be happening, you can visit. You have a couple of options. So one which I'm showing you right now is on the Vantage Markets website. So what you do is you go onto vantagemarkets.com, you go into education, and if you just scroll down a little, you'll see that there's this economic calendar part. So you click on that, and that'll bring you to the page which I'm currently on. So scroll down a little bit more, and you'll see that these are all the events that are happening for this week, right? So it shows all the way from 1st May on Monday, all the way to today, right? So this is Friday. Some of the data is already out, but some of it is not out yet, right? So there are also alternatives to this. You can also check out Forex Factory. So Forex Factory allows you to filter by the currency pairs and also by expected impact. And also you can see what's happening this week as well as next week, right? So maybe before we begin with the trade setups for today, we will just go through some key economic events that have happened this week and some things to look forward to for next week. So this week we had a couple of central banks giving their rate hike decisions, right? The first one early on in the week was by the Reserve Bank of Australia, and that one surprised markets. So if you can see over here, instead of a pause, which markets expected, the RBA raised interest rates by 25 basis points. So that was surprising to markets. And you can, if you look at the charts for the Aussie dollar, you'll see that it strengthened quite a bit this week. The other few ones which were quite big news this week, one of them was by the US Federal Reserve, and that was on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, they hiked by 25 basis points, which brings them to a range of about 5 to 5.25%. So this is anticipated to be the final rate hike, and the signal that we've gotten from Fed Chair Powell is that it will also, they are not anticipating further hikes from here on out, although they remain data dependent as per normal. So the last one which we're looking at is, of course, the one that happened yesterday, and that one's by the European Central Bank. And that they raised rates by 25 basis points. And if you look at the news, that was expected by markets, and there was a near unanimous vote for 25 basis points. But there, of course, were some members who wanted 50, but in the end, the decision was 25. Right, so these are a few things to take note of, and why this might be of interest to you, if let's say you're trading, is because you want to avoid periods where there are major news announcements, because that usually induces large amounts of volatility in the markets. Right? So looking forward to next week, right, we have there's data out on inflation in the US, so that will be out early on Wednesday, right? And that is important because the previous inflation data was the core PCE price index, and that one was unchanged from the previous readings at 0.3%. So this one could give more information on inflation, and of course, if inflation is high, then generally markets will expect that the Fed will be hawkish. So that is important for those of you who are trading. Yeah, and the other thing to take note of is that the UK Central Bank, the Bank of England, is going to have its policy meeting next week, and that will also they will also decide how much to raise interest rates by, if at all, right? So these are the few things in the markets that you want to take note of before you enter your any trades. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing and I'll bring us back to the presentation itself. Okay, so you can see my screen. So now what I'm going to do next is let you know which setups we're going to do today. So for today, we're going to do the dollar index, the Kiwi dollar, as well as Brent dollar, right? So Brent is like Brent crude. Let me just stop sharing so I can show you trading view. But again, at any point, if you have any chart requests, feel free to let me know in the Q&A. Okay, so if you can see my screen over here, what I'm looking at is the dollar index, and I am on the weekly time frame. How I usually go about doing technical analysis is I will start from the larger time frames. And we'll from there observe if there are any interesting price levels or key zones. And also we also want to observe what is the general market structure. So one more obvious zone will be this one over here that stretches all the way back from May last year. And why is it why I've highlighted it is because it's been tested multiple times and it has not been broken yet. So it's been, the first test was in May last year. It's been tested on 3 weeks in early this year, in January, and now price is also testing it again. So this is a zone that has been respected by price. Whenever price comes in, what happens is that there are buyers who enter the market that push price up. Right? So that is one zone which I can observe on the weekly time frame. And if you look at the general market structure, you'll see that there are lower lows being formed, and also, broadly speaking, lower highs. Right? So you can see if I change it to this form, you see that the highs are, generally speaking, getting lower. And of course, the lows are also getting lower as well. Right? So this is the market structure on the weekly time frame. So what we want to do next is we can zoom into the smaller time frames. We're going to go into the daily time frame now, right? So let me just do that. And we can also see that this support zone is still holding, right? And the next thing we want to look out for are any possible other key zones which might be of interest. So there is potentially one right over here. And you can see, and why I've chosen it, or why I think that is of interest, is because price at first tapped it here as a support, and afterwards broke below it, and now, and it was and it is still a resistance zone ever since it broke below. Where you can see that price tapped up, and price got pushed down, afterwards tapped up again, and finally here, sometime in March, price tested it again before pushing down, right? So this is another zone that is potentially interesting on the daily time frame, right? There could also be another one, but maybe less obvious, is the one over here, right? Maybe it might extend here as well, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it might extend around here as well. And why I say so is because you can see that price is again testing it as a support, and then broke below as a resistance. There's some consolidation over here, you can see that where the market is hesitating, right? And afterwards broke above, tested as a support and broke below it, and now it's a resistance. Maybe potentially you can even consider it, we can even consider it a little bit, extending a little bit more all the way to early April, right? So these are the zones that I observe on the daily time frame, right? Okay. So let's zoom in a little bit more onto the 4-hour time frame. And again, we can still notice that there was potentially there was a reversal over here, and this stretch over here, reversal because price pulled back upwards towards the zone here on the higher around the 105 level before going downwards again. So there was a break of structure at that point. Okay, so now we're on a 4-hour time frame, and what we can see is that there is another possible zone of interest over here. Right. Why so is because price has gone in to test multiple times. You can see one over here, one time here, and just very recently, a few days ago, multiple times as well. Here, I think here as well. So these are some zones which could be, and this zone is potentially a zone that is important. And if we extend it a little bit more, we can see that there have been some reactions to price. Price has break off these zones a little bit over here, as well as here. So there's some form of resistance here before breaking above, and then afterwards, price hasn't broken above it. Yeah, so that is something else that is potentially, this zone might be of interest, right? Okay, so finally, the smallest time frame we'll go on to for the dollar index, which we'll be looking at the hourly time frame. And you can see that on the hourly time frame, this zone which we have identified on the weekly time frame is still holding, right? So right now price is trending within it, holding within it. In fact, if we zoom in a little bit more, right, we can see that there is actually a smaller zone of demand within this larger demand zone, right? And it's over here, right? It is over here, right? We can see that price has tapped it a few times. There's one over here, and then a few more times over here as well. Okay. So this is another possible zone in a smaller time frame. And if you look, we can see that price has been ranging between these two zones. In fact, if we can also extend it a little bit more here as well, right? You can see that price has been ranging between these two zones since early April, right? So that is something to take note of. What could happen is that price might might bounce off this zone or support zone over here and go higher before being pushed down. So there is some consolidation right now we are seeing, at least for the dollar index. Of course, we all know the dollar index is not tradable, but that definitely by looking at the general structure of the dollar index, we can gauge what are happening in the other markets that the dollar is compared against, right? So just to look at other possible indicators, we can check out Ichimoku cloud. So right now price is below Ichimoku cloud, right? Just hovering just below it, which is a bearish sign, right? So it means that price could trend downwards from here. If let's say we look at MACD, right? You see that MACD is below 0, right? Over here, it is right now at a negative value. So what it means is that it's also showing bullish signs. But another thing to take note of is that in a ranging market, which is what looks like is currently happening for the dollar index, MACD might not be as useful because it can give a lot of false signals, right? Okay, so at any point, if any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll be moving on to the next chart, which is the Kiwi dollar, right? Okay. So we're on the Kiwi dollar right now, and I'm on the weekly time frame. as you can tell. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, look at market structure and also identify key zones of interest. One possible zone which I see right now is one over here, right? So what's happened is that price has tested a few times, support as a support, and then afterwards as a resistance, because price has gone pulled back up to test it here as well as here, and the most recent time was in early January this year, right? Another zone that could be of interest, right, is the one that is very recent. It's just over here. And while price hasn't reacted very strongly off this particular zone in the past, it has reacted at some points. So it might not be a very strong level at, say, in July 2022. But for sure, definitely, if we're looking from early Feb onwards, you see that price has been testing it multiple times, almost every week, right? So what we want to do next is we want to look at the go on to the smaller time frame. So we're going to go on to the daily right now to see if these zones hold. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clear some of the drawings here. Okay. So this is the Kiwi dollar on the daily. And the next thing we'll notice is that there is another possible zone of, there's a resistance zone over here. Why I say so is because if you look here, price has tested a few times over here, right? And then again over here, and again over here as well, right? So price, sellers have entered the market at these points and pushed price down further. So that's one potential zone of resistance. I wouldn't extend it over here because it looks very choppy at this point. So price doesn't seem to be respecting it very much. You see, there's a lot of price is closing above, below it. So this level doesn't seem to be very much respected if you're going all the way to early December last year. So that's why I will only start from this point onwards. Yeah. Okay. So I think on the larger time frame, you'll see that right now, while there is some bearish market structure, what you can see is that there seems to be a pullback. If you're looking at the larger time frame, there is a pullback. So there's a you see there's a bearish market structure. There's a lower lows form as well as lower highs over here, right? And then you can suddenly see there's a break of structure over here, where this high over here is this high, sorry. Okay, this high has broken above this previous high, right? So there is some sort of break of structure here, but then afterwards, this low here was broken, right? So right now we are in this trend, ranging markets over here, and we could potentially, what we could potentially see next is that price taps the resistance zone which we have identified here and gets pushed down further, right? So that is possible, right? Although, of course, if you note that there's quite a few bullish candles over here, so we need to confirm by going to the smaller time frames whether there will be any further push downwards, whether there will be any rejection of this particular level at 0.63, right? So what we can observe if we go on to the smaller time frames, right, is that we do observe markets are still ranging. And what's happening is that price is approaching this resistance zone. And we want to be sure, let's say we want to check whether there's any other signs that there could be a reversal happening soon. We have to go on to the smaller time frame. So I'm going on to the 1 hour time frame now, right? And we observe that price is still making higher highs, higher lows. Why I say so is because if you look generally broadly over this part, we are getting higher lows and we're also getting higher highs, right? So right now we are in a form of the market that is quite bullish, at least for this segment here, right? Okay. We also want to look at potential levels and where there could be a reversal, or maybe there is a for breakout of this particular level. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for Fibonacci retracements, right? So we could expect price to touch this point before retracing downwards. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to look for retracements that are possible. So I'll take from the lowest point, which is around here. And the highest point we've reached is somewhere about here. What you can see is that there's a 78.6% retracement over there. So that's possible. Yeah, I think that would be the one that's most likely, given the others that might be quite far away. So the others might be even further away. So this is not really relevant, right? And yeah, so that's about it for Fibonacci retracements. What could also happen is that we could expect price to further climb upwards as well. So what I'm going to do is look for Fibonacci extension levels, right? We're looking for an inverted V shape. So price from a low goes to the next high and then comes down to a low again. So what I'm going to do is I'll look from here. So this is a low. And the next high is somewhere here. And the next low is here. So there could be a further push upwards, right? This is the 50% one. So it could be a 78.6% Fibonacci extension. So price could continue trending upwards. Over here, there seems like there's another low being formed, right? So that could be possible, but I'm not taking that right now because it's still quite new. So it could go a bit lower beyond that. So this level over here, the 78.6% level, that could also be another potential zone of interest if we are looking at what where could price continue trending up towards before making a further move downwards, right? We also want to look at whether there's any indicators that might support our bias, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for Ichimoku cloud. So price right now is hovering above the Ichimoku cloud. And likewise, if you look at MACD, it is also showing bullish momentum. What's happening is that we can see here MACD is very much above 0, right? So what this means is that price could continue trending upwards, right, from where we are right now. That's actually highly possible. So that's why we also have this extension level over here. So this is possible. These are all pointing to bullish signs in the market. And this is about it for the Kiwi dollar. Right? At any point, any questions, again, feel free to drop in the Q&A. Okay. So now I'm going on to Brent crude USD on the weekly time frame. So again, we are starting from the larger time frames. And what we observe is that there are a few zones again of interest. Right? The first one is over here. Right? We can see that there is a resistance zone, right, that's held somewhere over here, all the way since September last year, right? And we can see that there's another support zone which has held since November. That's a very long time ago, almost 2 years ago, and price has not broken below it since then, right? If you look at the most recent times, price touches it and then bounces back up off it, right? So these are some zones which we can observe on the weekly time frame. Yeah. So now we're going to go a little bit more into, So also again, at the same time, we'll see that there is a general bearish market structure. If you're looking over here, you can see that there are lower highs as well as lower lows being formed, right? And this has been all the way since May last year, right? Okay, so now we're going to go on to the daily time frame. Let's take a look, see whether any more resistance or support zones. Okay. So another possible one, let's see, could be one over here. So if we are going over to the I'll take it from this point here. Okay. So this is a potential zone of interest. I'm not again, I'm not extending it all the way here because price does not really seem to be respecting the zone over there, right? It has there's a lot of movement around it. Whereas over here, if you're starting from February onwards, you'll see that price tapped into it as a support zone twice, right? Once here, and then afterwards broke below it, tested it again, resistance, and of course here there's some testing as a support, and afterwards tested it as a resistance. Then there's this huge jump over here because of OPEC Plus's production cuts. And afterwards, we have this testing of it as a support, breaking below it, and then testing it as a resistance zone. So that's why I'm looking at this particular level that's been all the way since February this year, right? And that's what I can observe on the daily time frame. Okay. So let's say we want to zoom in a little bit more to see if there are any more zones of interest that could hold, right? What we can do is we can go on to the smaller time frames again. And I'll clear up some of the drawings so that's neater. Okay. So now we are on the 4-hour time frame, and we can see that of course price has tested the same zone we identified earlier as a resistance, and then again over here. So you can see that there is some there's stronger confirmation of this zone as a resistance zone, right? Okay. And right now, where is price? Price is trending at basically is within the support zone that we identified early on the weekly time frame. I'm not wrong. Let me just confirm again. Yep, it is on the weekly time frame. We have observed this hitting it 3 times at least, right? So going back to the 4-hour time frame, you'll see that right now price is hitting this zone on the weekly time frame, which is generally a strong support zone. And what you can see is that price is sort of consolidating at this point. And potentially there could be move upwards as well. But right now there are no clear signs of that happening. So we are going to see price movement on the smaller time frames, on the 1-hour time frame. Okay. And if you go on to the smaller 1-hour time frame, what we observe is that we can actually see another support zone that existed before it got broken through, right? So this is one over here, right? And I say so because there's been test of it here, here. So 3 times as a support. Of course, this is not very strong support, not like the one that we are seeing on the weekly, right? Because it has been really broken through in a very short amount of time, right? But this is another possible resistance zone that price could encounter if price actually does continue going up from this support zone. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to be looking for potential retracements. So what I'm going to try to see is that if price has fallen from this point here, from all the way from 79, whether price could potentially retrace to any of these key significant levels that I've identified, maybe on the 77 or maybe on the 79, right? I'm going to do that now. Okay. I'm going to take it from the high, which is around here, right? So this is the high, and the low all the way over here. And we are trying to see if there are any levels that could line up with what we observe, right? So we're seeing that this level over here on the 77 is not really lining up with either the 78 or the 61% Fibonacci retracement level. That's okay, that's all right. What we're going to do is we're going to not use any of these levels, right? We're going to ignore them. And what we're going to do look for next is could price potentially hit either this level or this level if we're looking at Fibonacci extensions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for an inverted V where price could trace higher before coming back down again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next high over here, which of course has been broken here, but I'm looking for the next low as well. So you can either take these three as the inverted V, so this one over here, and then you try to see where price will extend to, right? That's possible. Of course, it's not the best because you can see that price has gone a bit low over here as well. It's not ideal, this particular extension, but the level that we potentially can get is still valid. So I'm going to share to see if there are any levels. So this one looks a little bit closer to the level that we have observed over here. So that is a potential, sorry. This is a potential level over here, 76 to 77, that price could hit, let's say if it continues trending upwards. And if you want to confirm to see whether there are any indicators that support our short-term bullish bias, then we can look at Ichimoku cloud. Right, so right now price is within Ichimoku cloud. So this is not right now it is non-indicative of anything. So we're not gonna look at it too much. The next thing we can look at, of course, is MACD, right? And right now MACD is just above 0. Right? So that's a sign of bullish momentum, right? And you can see that it has just exited 0 from a very long bearish period as well. Right? So that's a possible indicator that supports the bullish bias. Right? Okay, so this is all that I have for today, right? I'm gonna stop sharing for trading on TradingView and bring us back to the presentation. But at any point, right now, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you would like, any charts that you maybe like me to go through, feel free to indicate that in the Q&A as well, right? Otherwise, you can feel free to check out more of these webinars on vantagemarkets.com/webinars. There are also some recordings available on YouTube as well. And of course, if you have any questions regarding your account, you can reach out to support@vantagemarkets.com. Right. Okay, so thank you all for joining us today. Right, I'll be stopping the recording now.